alien girl panicked at her first checkup. Then the human said something that changed everything. When starlight meets medicine, the crash should have killed her. Dr. Jenna Blackwood knew this with the clinical certainty of someone who had seen too many accident reports and understood exactly how fragile human bodies were when thrown against immovable objects at high velocity. Instead, she found herself hanging upside down in her pilot's harness, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead, staring at the soft violet glow filtering through her ship's cracked viewport. Nexara. She'd actually made it to Nexara. The xenobiology research station had been her destination, a 6-month solo posting to study the planet's unique bioluminescent ecosystems. Now, as she cut herself free from the harness and tumbled ungracefully to what used to be the ceiling, she realized her research might be starting sooner than expected. The air that hissed through the hull breach carried scents she'd only read about in preliminary reports, something like cinnamon mixed with ozone, with an underlying sweetness that made her think of night-blooming jasmine. Her portable scanner, miraculously unbroken, confirmed the atmosphere was breathable. The gravity felt lighter than Earth normal, making her movements feel almost bouncy as she gathered her scattered medical supplies. The emergency beacon was dead. Her long-range communicator had become an abstract sculpture of twisted metal and circuit boards. The portable medical kit, however, had survived intact, a stroke of luck that felt almost prophetic. Outside, the violet glow resolved into a forest of crystalline structures that weren't quite trees and weren't quite stones. They pulsed gently with internal light, creating a rhythm like a slow, massive heartbeat. Jenna had barely taken 3 steps from her wrecked ship when she heard the whistle. It was a sound like wind through a flute, but with harmonics that made her bones vibrate. She turned slowly, hands raised to show she carried no weapons, and found herself face to face with beings she'd only seen in grainy, long-distance photographs. The Zelhari. They stood in a loose semicircle around her, 7 tall figures whose skin seemed to contain constellations. Bioluminescent markings traced delicate patterns across their exposed arms and faces, shifting from deep blue to silver as she watched. Their hair, ranging from white to pale green, moved as if underwater despite the still air. Most striking were their eyes, large, multifaceted like cut gems reflecting the light of their own markings. The one who stepped forward wore what looked like armor, made from the same crystalline material as the forest. Intricate patterns were carved into the plates, and they glowed with the same soft rhythm as her skin. She was young, Jenna thought. Something in her posture suggested the controlled energy of someone not yet fully grown into their strength. Human, the young Zelhari said, her voice carrying the same musical quality as the whistle. The word was heavily accented but unmistakably in standard Galactic. You have brought fire to the sacred grove. Jenna glanced back at her ship, which was indeed smoking despite her best efforts to shut down all systems. I'm sorry. It wasn't intentional. My ship malfunctioned and... Elder Thissa will decide your fate. Another voice interrupted. This one belonged to a scarred male whose markings pulsed with aggressive red undertones. The grove burner comes with us. They bound her hands with what felt like silk, but held like steel cable. The young female, Jenna caught her name as Velka during the march, walked beside her with fluid, almost dancing steps. Occasionally she would stumble slightly, pressing a hand to her lower abdomen with a grimace that needed no translation. The Zelhari settlement was built into and around a cluster of the largest crystal formations Jenna had ever seen. Some structures grew organically from the living stone, while others had been carved with impossible delicacy. Soft light emanated from within the crystals themselves, creating a twilight world of moving shadows and gentle illumination. Elder Thissa received them in a chamber that felt like the inside of a geode. The ceiling arched high overhead, faceted surfaces throwing light in complex patterns. The Elder herself was ancient by any standard. Her bioluminescent markings had faded to the faintest silver threads, and her multifaceted eyes held depths that spoke of centuries. Dr. Jenna Blackwood, Thissa said, and Jenna startled at hearing her full name. Yes, we know of you. The research station has spoken of your coming for many seasons. You're in contact with the station? When we choose to be. Thissa's smile revealed teeth that gleamed like pearls. Your people are persistent in their desire to study us. We have been curious about their healer. The scarred male, Rockin, stepped forward. She has violated the sacred grove, Elder. The punishment is clear. Perhaps. Thissa's gaze never left Jenna's face. Tell me, healer of humans, what do you know of Zelhari physiology? Jenna straightened despite her bonds. The preliminary studies suggest your people have a dual circulatory system, one for nutrients, one for the bioluminescent compounds. Your cellular structure appears to be partially crystalline, which explains the light-conducting properties. Reproduction seems to involve some form of synchronized biorhythm, though the details are unclear. A murmur rippled through the gathered Zelhari. Thissa's eyes brightened with what might have been approval. Impressive. And what would you say to someone suffering from asynchronous crystalline resonance in the reproductive matrix? Jenna blinked. The translator software in her neural implant was having trouble with that phrase, but the medical terminology was clear enough. I'd say that sounds extremely painful and potentially life-threatening if left untreated. Velka swayed on her feet, her markings flickering erratically. The hand pressed to her abdomen trembled. Our healers, Thissa continued, work with harmony and balance. But sometimes a different approach is needed. Sometimes we must understand the individual components before we can restore the whole. Understanding dawned. You want me to examine her? Medically. I want you to prove your worth, Thissa said. Velka of the Moonstone clan suffers from a condition our traditional methods cannot address. If you can help her, perhaps your violation of the grove can be overlooked. Rockin's markings flared angry red. Elder, surely you cannot trust this. Alien with one of our own. The choice, Thissa said quietly, is Velka's to make. All eyes turned to the young warrior. Her bioluminescent patterns were definitely erratic now, shifting between colors in what Jenna was beginning to recognize as distress. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. The pain grows stronger each day. If healer Zorith cannot help me, she looked directly at Jenna, and her faceted eyes seemed to hold entire galaxies. What would you need to do? Jenna's medical training kicked in, pushing past the surreal nature of the situation. First, I'd need to understand your baseline, physiology, then a physical examination to localize the source of the pain. Depending on what I find, possibly some non-invasive scanning if my equipment is compatible with your biology. Scanning? Velka's markings shifted to alarmed yellow. You would look inside me? Not with my eyes, Jenna said gently. With instruments, like holding a crystal up to the light to see the patterns inside, but without breaking it open. Velka considered this, pressing both hands to her abdomen as another wave of pain visibly swept through her. And this scanning, it would not harm me? Not if I'm careful. And I'm always careful. The silence stretched long enough for the crystal chamber's harmonics to become audible, a sound like distant singing. Finally, Velka straightened with the dignity of someone much older than her apparent years. I accept, she said, but if the human healer causes me harm, the consequences fall on her own head. Elder Thissa nodded slowly. So be it. Rockin escort them to the healing chambers. And Jenna Blackwood? The elder's use of her name carried weight. Remember that trust once broken cannot easily be repaired. Do not disappoint us. As they were led deeper into the crystal complex, Jenna caught Velka's eye. The young Zelhari's markings had settled into a pattern of deep blue touched with silver, what Jenna was learning to read as determined fear. Thank you, Jenna said quietly. Velka's response was almost too soft to hear. Do not thank me yet, human healer. We are both about to enter unknown territory. The healing chambers lay in the deepest part of the crystal complex, where the walls themselves seemed to pulse with life. As they descended, Jenna realized she was about to perform the first recorded medical examination of a Zelhari. The scientific implications were staggering. The personal implications, she thought as she watched Velka struggle with each step, might be even more significant. The language of trust. The healing chambers existed in a space that defied easy description. Jenna found herself in a cavern where the walls breathed with slow, rhythmic light, and the air itself seemed to hum with harmonics that made her teeth ache pleasantly. Crystalline formations jutted from floor and ceiling like frozen waterfalls, each one singing in a different pitch as the Zelhari moved through the space. Velka had grown increasingly pale during their descent, her bioluminescent markings flickering like a dying star. By the time they reached the chamber's heart, she was leaning heavily against the wall, her breathing shallow and rapid. "The pain is worse here," she whispered, and Jenna noticed how the other Zelhari gave her worried glances. "The resonance chambers amplify all biological processes," explained a new voice. Jenna turned to see an elderly Zelhari approaching, their markings a steady, deep gold that spoke of age and wisdom. Unlike the others, this one wore robes that seemed to be woven from crystalline threads, creating a living tapestry of light. "I am Healer Zorith, keeper of the traditional ways." There was challenge in the title, and Jenna recognized a professional colleague asserting territory. She inclined her head respectfully. "Dr. Jenna Blackwood, I'm honored to meet you, Healer." "Zorith, are you?" Zorith's multifaceted eyes studied her with uncomfortable intensity. "Or are you simply eager to experiment on one of our young?" Before Jenna could respond, another Zelhari burst into the chamber. This one was clearly related to Velka, the same delicate bone structure and moonstone-colored markings, though hers pulsed with agitated purple. "Sister," the newcomer said, rushing to Velka's side, "I heard what you agreed to. This is madness." "Nixon," Velka's voice carried exhaustion. "Please, the pain will pass. It always does for our kind during the awakening." Nixon's markings flared brighter as she turned to face Jenna. "You have no understanding of our biology, human. What you call medicine, we might call butchery." "Then teach me," Jenna said simply. The response clearly wasn't what Nixon had expected. Her aggressive purple markings flickered with confusion. "What?" "Teach me about your biology, about the awakening, about what's normal and what isn't." Jenna looked around the chamber, taking in the concerned faces. "I'm not here to impose human medicine on Zelhari physiology. I'm here to help Velka, and the best way to do that is to understand what's happening to her." Healer Zorith's golden markings shifted to something that might have been approval. "Interesting approach, human healer. Very well. Nixon, show her the resonance patterns." Nixon hesitated, then moved to one of the larger crystalline formations. She placed her hands against its surface, and immediately the crystal began to glow brighter, its internal patterns shifting and dancing. "This is how we heal," she said, "through harmony, through resonance. Our bodies are partially crystalline, as you noted. When we are injured or ill, the patterns become discordant." She demonstrated, and Jenna could see the crystal's light becoming erratic. "Traditional healing restores the harmony." "Beautiful," Jenna said, and meant it. "But what happens when the discord isn't just illness? What happens when it's growth? Change?" Velka made a soft sound of pain, doubling over. Her markings were now flashing in rapid, chaotic patterns that made Jenna's eyes water. "The awakening," Zorith said quietly. "It comes to all Zelhari when they reach maturity. The reproductive matrix begins to resonate at new frequencies. Usually the transition is gradual, comfortable. But sometimes the change is too rapid." Nixon finished, her anger fading into worry. "The crystalline structures can't adapt quickly enough. The discord becomes dangerous." Jenna nodded, her medical training translating the description into familiar terms. "Like a growth spurt that happens too fast for the skeletal system to accommodate. The framework can't support the change." "Yes." Zorith's markings brightened with surprise. "Exactly like that. So traditional healing tries to slow the process, restore the old harmony," Jenna continued, working through the logic. "But what if the old harmony is what's causing the problem? What if Velka's body is trying to complete a natural process, but something is blocking it? Velka straightened slightly, her pain-clouded eyes focusing on Jenna. You think my body is fighting itself? I think your body is trying to grow up, and something is stopping it from doing so smoothly. Jenna opened her medical kit, revealing the gleaming instruments within. Traditional Zelhari healing focuses on harmony and balance. Human medicine focuses on identifying and removing obstacles to natural processes. Maybe you need both. She pulled out her portable scanner, a device no bigger than her palm but capable of analyzing cellular structures in real time. This will show me the patterns inside your body without touching you. I can see where the energy is flowing and where it's blocked. Velka looked to her sister, then to healer Zorith. Both nodded slowly. All right, Velka said, though her voice shook. What do I need to do? Just lie down and try to relax. This might feel strange, but it won't hurt. Jenna activated the scanner, adjusting its settings for the Zelhari's unique physiology. The device hummed softly as it began to map Velka's internal structures, projecting a three-dimensional hologram into the air above them. The assembled Zelhari gasped. Velka's body was beautiful in the scanner's display, a complex network of crystalline matrices and flowing energy channels that pulsed with life. But there, in her lower abdomen, was a knot of chaotic energy patterns, like a traffic jam in the middle of a busy intersection. There, Jenna pointed to the anomaly. Something is blocking the natural flow. The energy that should be moving through your reproductive matrix is backing up, creating pressure and pain. Healer Zorith leaned closer, their golden markings shifting to intense concentration. I have never seen our inner pattern so clearly. This is remarkable. Can you fix it? Nixon asked, her earlier hostility replaced by desperate hope. Jenna studied the display, her fingers dancing over her scanner's controls to get different perspectives on the blockage. I think so, but not with human medicine alone. She looked up at Zorith. I need to understand how your resonance healing works. If I can identify the exact frequency that's causing the blockage, maybe you can help me dissolve it. You want to combine our methods? Zorith's markings flickered with something that might have been excitement. I want to give Velka the best care possible, and that means using every tool available. Velka's markings had begun to stabilize as the scanner's analysis continued. The pain, it's less now. Just knowing what's wrong helps. Knowledge often does, Jenna agreed. Now, Healer Zorith, can you show me exactly how resonance healing works? I need to understand the principles if we're going to work together. What followed was the most extraordinary medical consultation of Jenna's career. Zorith demonstrated how different crystals could be used to generate specific healing frequencies, while Jenna's scanner mapped the exact effect each resonance had on Velka's internal energy patterns. Together, they identified the precise combination of frequencies needed to dissolve the blockage without disrupting the natural awakening process. It's like surgery, Jenna explained, as she made final adjustments to her scanner's output. But, instead of cutting, we're using sound and light to gently separate the tangled energy patterns. Nixon held her sister's hand as the treatment began. The healing chamber filled with a complex harmony of crystal song and scanner harmonics, creating music unlike anything Jenna had ever heard. Velka's markings began to pulse in rhythm with the treatment, their chaotic flashing gradually resolving into steady, beautiful patterns. The moment of breakthrough came suddenly. The energy knot simply unraveled, like a puzzle piece finally finding its proper place. Velka gasped, her back arching as waves of relief washed over her. Her markings blazed brighter than Jenna had ever seen them, cycling through colors that had no names in any human language. It's working, Nixon breathed, her own markings bright with joy. Velka sat up slowly, wonder replacing pain in her expression. The discord is gone. I can feel the harmony returning, but different, deeper, stronger. Your awakening is completing itself, Zorith said, their ancient voice warm with satisfaction. The resonance is finding its new pattern. Jenna deactivated her scanner, exhaustion and elation warring in her chest. How do you feel? Like I'm becoming who I was always meant to be, Velka replied, her markings now a steady, mature gold shot through with silver threads. Thank you, Jenna Blackwood. Thank you both. Elder Thissa appeared in the chamber doorway as if summoned by the successful treatment. Her faded markings brightened slightly as she took in the scene. Velka sitting upright and pain-free, Zorith and Jenna comparing notes on their combined techniques, Nixon weeping tears of relief. It seems, the elder said, that trust was not misplaced. Neither was the willingness to learn, Jenna replied. Healer Zorith taught me more about resonance healing in one afternoon than years of research could have accomplished. And you showed me that sometimes, understanding the individual components is indeed necessary to restore the whole, Zorith admitted. Perhaps our healing traditions could benefit from exchange of knowledge. Velka stood, her movements now fluid and pain-free. She approached Jenna with the formal grace of a warrior, but her eyes held warmth that transcended species barriers. Among my people, she said, those who save a life during the awakening become family. Will you accept this bond, Jenna Blackwood? Will you be my sister by choice? Jenna felt tears prick her eyes. I would be honored. The ceremony that followed was simple but profound. Velka and Jenna placed their hands together on one of the resonance crystals, letting its harmonics flow through them both. For a moment, Jenna's consciousness seemed to expand, touching something vast and musical that might have been the living song of an entire species. When it was over, she found her own skin bearing faint, temporary markings, not bioluminescent, like the Zelharis, but visible nonetheless, a sign that she had been accepted officially and completely into their community. So, Elder Thissa said as the ceremony concluded, it seems your ship's crash was not the disaster we first believed. Perhaps it was simply the universe's way of bringing a healer where she was needed most. Jenna looked around at her new family, Velka, radiant with health and newfound maturity, Nixon, no longer hostile but grateful, Zorith, eager to continue their medical collaboration, and Elder Thissa, whose ancient wisdom had made it all possible. Perhaps it was, she agreed. And perhaps some of the best discoveries happen when we're willing to trust each other with our most vulnerable moments. Velka's laugh was like crystal chimes in the wind. Then let us make many more discoveries together, sister by choice. I have a feeling our peoples have much to learn from each other. As they left the healing chambers together, the crystalline walls pulsed with harmonics that seemed to celebrate the beginning of something new. Not just Velka's successful awakening, but the first bridge between two species, built on trust, knowledge, and the universal language of healing. Outside, Nexara's crystal forest sang in harmony with the stars, and for the first time since her crash, Jenna felt truly home.